Paul says, yeah, I'm gonna do something really cool. And he never said what. And then all of a sudden, then this all kind of come up on the news, and I said, well, that's awesome.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Presque City Council Wednesday, September 6th meeting. We have 7 out of 7 councilors present tonight, and we will start. If you'd all please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone, for that. If you're following along in the agenda, you'll see that we had our executive session at 5 p.m. You'll be able to look at the notes for this meeting when they're published online to see any resolutions we took. And if you're interested in any of those executive sessions, you can certainly reach out to staff or council to help walk you through what we talked about and if we voted on anything. We'll move right into our public hearing portion of the night. With our first agenda item, which is an approval of a marijuana license renewal to Richardson Remedies, Presque LLC, with a location of 719 Main Street. These public hearings are your chance to either come to the council meeting or you can submit questions or comments online. If Kim would be so kind as to give out that email where you can do that.
K. Finnemore, KFINNEMORE at presquelme.us.
Thank you very much. We do take those comments electronically as well, or you can come here to one of our regularly scheduled council meetings and address us. So we'll go ahead and start with the city manager on this, and I would just ask if there are any recommendations from the city.
Council, we do have a recommendation from staff for approval. They have met all the requirements.
Thank you. With that being said, we'll open the public hearing. So if anyone is here from the public tonight to comment on that, now's your opportunity. Did we receive any written or email comments?
No.
So seeing none, we will close the public hearing and I'll ask City Council for comments or motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the renewal of a medical marijuana license to Richardson Remedies, Presque LLC, with a store at 719 Main Street.
Motion by Jeff, second by Craig. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And 7-0. Moving on to our second agenda item and our second public hearing of the night is an approval of a marijuana license renewal to Jonathan Martin, doing business as Cloud9, with a location of 28 Holton Road. Same as the first, you can come here and speak to the city council or give comments online. Were there any written comments that we received?
No.
Martin, is there a recommendation from the city?
Staff recommends approval.
Thank you. With that, we'll open the public hearing to anyone who may be here tonight to talk about this item. And seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that public hearing and ask council for comment or motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move the renewal of the marijuana license to Jonathan Martin, DBA Cloud9, with a location of 28 Holton Road.
Motion by Kevin.
Second.
Second by Jeff. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And 7-0. Our third public hearing of the night is an approval for a marijuana license renewal to Chad Jenkins, doing business as Northern Euphoria, LLC, with location of 11 Davis Street. Did we receive any written or email comments?
No.
Is there a recommendation from the city?
I would ask if the city clerk, if everything was in order with the application.
I haven't heard from Tim, unfortunately. He didn't tell me I was out.
So, council, this one, unfortunately, we have not. We're still looking to do the inside inspection, and I guess, has that been completed by?
The owner of the business has not scheduled his inspection.
So, council, we do have the ability, we could approve this conditionally based upon successful inspection with the code enforcement officer.
When does the license expire?
End of September.
And before the next council meeting?
There's possible too that we could table. We have our next council meeting on the 27th, so we will meet before it expires, so we could table at this point. We've already notified the public. We have had no opposition, so I don't think that tabling is a bad choice at this point.
We'll go ahead and ask, just for clarity's sake, is there anyone here tonight who was going to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that public hearing, and I would entertain a motion to table.
Mr. Chairman, I move we table the marijuana license for Chad Junkins until such a time that he can finish his process.
As a motion by Craig, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. Any further motion to table passes, and we will discuss it at our September 27th meeting.
How many voted?
Yeah, you gotta vote.
Okay, all those in favor?
There you go.
And 7-0. Moving right along to our fourth public hearing, we have an approval for a special permit for music, dancing, and entertainment for the University of Maine at Presque, the location of 181 Main Street. Were there any written or email comments on this? Any recommendations from the city?
Staff recommends approval.
That being said, we will open this public hearing. Is there anyone from the public here tonight who would like to talk to us about agenda item 4? Seeing none, we'll close that public hearing and ask for a motion or comment from the city, or from the council.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve a special permit for music, dancing, and entertainment for the University of Maine at Presque with a location of 181 Main Street.
Motion by Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kevin. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And unanimous. Moving on to our fifth public hearing of the night, we have an approval for an automobile graveyard permit, junkyard permit for Cowett's Used Auto Parts located at 259 Fort Road. Were there any written or email comments for this?
No.
Is there a recommendation by the city?
Staff recommends approval.
Thank you. That being said, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here tonight to speak on agenda item 5? Seeing none, we will close that public hearing, and I would ask council for a comment or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve a special permit for automobile graveyard / junkyard permit for Cowett's Used Auto Parts, DBA Car Parts, 75 Davis Street and 259 Fort Road.
There's a motion by Jeff. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mike. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And unanimous. And lastly, for our public hearing tonight, we have a number of charter amendments that we discussed at our last meeting. We wanted to take those home, allow council and the public some time to review them, so we can vote on them tonight. And I think it's appropriate if we start with the city manager tonight, if you'd give us a little update from where we were and what's happened over the month.
Certainly. So council, I tried to do these in a nice orderly fashion. I did hand out papers that are at your, in front of you. And so there were, I believe there was six different items that we talked about. And so it does require us for have a public hearing. You can see that in the packet of information, we did notify the public that we were discussing the charter amendments. So I have taken these list of 6 and did get a legal opinion if these were suitable for moving forward, and they are. So I had the city attorney review them after last council meeting. So what I will need tonight is approval for this list, and probably if we do it independent, each recommendation would be done separately for this, so we can put these on the ballot for the upcoming November election for citizen approval. So I tried to do this in a strike-through format, just like when we do ordinances, so you can follow along, you can see what the changes would be. So the first item we were discussing in the last council meeting last month was the nomination process, which I thought that Councilor Freeman made an excellent point. To run for state legislature, you're required to get 50 votes. Our threshold was 75, so why not follow the state? I do think that's a barrier, collecting 75. You can get up to 150 if you're really ambitious signatures to submit, but that was the first recommendation that council came through. So reducing it from 75 minimum required signatures down to 50.
So I guess I don't want to ask for all of these, so if you don't mind, Martin, can we just go through a review of all of them, and then we'll
Sure.
open the public hearing at the end, and then vote individually?
Definitely. Item number 2 was the ability to hold remote meetings. So either by the telephone, the most popular one that municipalities are doing now are Zoom meetings. So there's a section in our charter on 2.9 that says councilors must be present to vote. And in red, I said voting, allowing them to vote remotely or to attend remotely to vote. So you can't do it by proxy. Maine state law doesn't allow that, to have someone else vote in your favor. You have to be attend remotely. So we could do a Zoom meeting here in the city council, and councilors could do that. And I imagine once this is approved by the voters, we'd have a policy that would say, 48 hours ahead of time, it has to be ahead of the meeting, we have to determine. So this essentially would allow for remote meetings. Any questions between that one? I thought that one was pretty straightforward. Number 3, there was a little division on what we wanted to do, so I didn't have any language to propose, but wanted to include the language that's in the charter about the emergency reserve account. So currently, the emergency reserve account, it tops out when it reaches 0.05% of the city's current state valuation. We have discussed what that amount is. It's right around 3 million, and we're approximately 2 years away from funding that amount. We're at 2.8 million, I think, if I look at the finance. Oh, we just stepped out, of course. So we're at about 2.8 million. We put in, the way that we fund this is 1.5 of the city's net annual budget. So it's roughly $100,000 that we put in a year. So we're roughly 2 years away from meeting that obligation where we wouldn't have to fund it anymore. We do have other methods to fund that. We can use surplus, we could use overlay, or any different methods at any time to fund it. So where we were discussing this last time as a council is, should that amount be adjusted to be a fixed amount? Should we reduce the amount lower than the 0.5%? And I believe there was some discussion too about not making it a requirement to have 7 councilors vote in favor of taking from the emergency reserve. Those were kind of the different opinions that we had at that point.
I think you're all set, just keep going through the list,
Just
Mark.
keep it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Item number 4 was to change the warden and warden clerk to appointed positions. Those would be appointed by council at the first meeting that we have at the beginning of the year. So council would actually appoint these positions. We have had problems, very similar to running for school board or council. It's the same threshold for getting the amount of votes. Signatures required to be on the ballot. And frankly, it's not a position that most people are aware of or want to run for. So to avoid that, the recommendation that would come from me is to make these appointed positions. They work very close with the city clerk, but having these elected, it's important to have individuals that are very familiar with election laws. So if you had appointed, you could have continuity with those. And I did include the language in there. It's in section 3, section 3.1, and section 4.1 about appointments. And item number 5 is to change the term from a council chair and deputy chair to the term mayor. Mayor is something that is definitely more familiar with people rather than a council chair. So that was the request. So that term pops up, deputy chair and chair comes up in a few different points in the charter. So I outlined all those items. So that one is a little bit longer in explanation, just because there's a number of times where it says chair and striking it through and putting mayor. Vacancies is number 6. Tie votes and forfeiture of office. So I did include in this one, you have seen towns that have done flip of a coin or drawing a name out of a hat. And MMA's legal opinion is that that can be easily contested by the party that does not win. And so state statute really doesn't allow us to do that. If both parties agree to it, then yes, you can move forward with that. But it's not something that they recommend. So is it possible? It is, but I could not find any legal language to change that methodology, unfortunately, to do it some other way. It's a constitutional right for the people to vote on who they want. So if there's a tie, then they should be allowed to vote, is what MMA argues, in the event of a tie, rather than have it be a game of chance. So unfortunately, I couldn't find any good language that would allow us to not do a runoff. A lot of it has to do with the fact that we're over 4,000 in population. There's different standards because we have more population.
Thank you very much, Martin, for going over those. So council will have an opportunity to kind of discuss in just a minute, and then we'll vote individually on each change. But with that being said, we'll open the public hearing. And did we receive any written or email comments?
No.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public here tonight who is here to talk about any of these charter amendments? Welcome. Please go ahead and state your name. And
Hi, I'm Jane Farron. Good evening. My name is Jane Farron. I live on Hillside Street here in Presque. I'm here this evening to speak in favor of sending to the Presque voters a proposed charter amendment to change the positions warden and ward clerk from elected to council appointed. Currently, I serve as Presque's election warden and was elected to the position in November of 2021. At that time, my name was the only name on the ballot. No one returned papers for the position of ward clerk, and Spike Savage won as a write-in. I've been a Presque resident for 30 years, and during that time, the city has been fortunate to have Jana Laurie, Larry Perry, and Spike serving as warden and ward clerk. I'm pleased to add my name to their ranks as overseeing fair and free elections. Even so, it is time the two positions become council appointments. My personal recommendation is that the council appoints their continuously trained city clerk as the warden, with her advancing forward the name or names she wants in a ward clerk or clerk's position. Those individuals are too important not to have informed and trained individuals. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jane, thanks for all your service too.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Donald Spike Savage. Worked here for 32 years in finance, etc. I'm concerned about the emergency reserve. And you said to get it up to the so-called, and I'm going to use the magic number, 3 million even, without any changes, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Say 5 years down the road, you use $1 million. How are you going to get it back to where it's supposed to be? And that's my concern, because you've taken out using the percent of the state valuation.
Right.
That's why I say leave it alone.
Yes, I see your point. I see your
But
point.
thing is, you're almost there anyway, and you get heavy rains or something. Well, Caribou 30 years ago lost a bridge, and it was like 3 years before they got it replaced. I understand state, federal are going to step in, but in the meantime, you need the funds here. And back in the 1980s, yeah, I was here, and the big thing we were concerned with is your ice storm. And I still think that may be a big problem here. If you get the power knocked out for a week, people are going to be coming back on the city saying, can you put us up somewhere? So, and you're going to need some funds handy and et cetera, so. That's my concern on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other citizens here to comment on the charter amendments tonight? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and move to council discussion. So I think where we should vote on them one at a time, we might as well discuss them one at a time. So let's start with number 1, to reduce the number of signatures required to run for council from 75 to 50 to match running for state elections. And at this point, is there anyone who's...
Mr. Chairman, I would say that this one, I think we've beat to death, and I think no one disagrees.
Excellent. I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we advance forward the change in the nominations for elective officers by petition to be moved to 50 signatures, consistent with the state representative, from the number of 75.
Is a motion by Craig? Second by Jeff. Is there any further discussion on this change? Seeing none, all those in favor? And it's unanimous. And just to remind everyone, as we vote on these, they aren't coming to fruition. What we're voting on tonight is to move these to the ballot. So that way voters can, have an opportunity to look at these and decide if they agree with our assessment of changing the charter.
Will voters vote on them as a whole or individually?
Individual ballot questions.
Okay, thanks.
So make sure you show up to vote this year. You're going to have a lot of interesting and a number of things to think about that will directly affect how your city government runs. So that being said, let's move on to number 2, to allow for remote meetings. And I would entertain a motion, or we can move to council comment.
Again, Mr. Chairman, I think this one, again, in light of our current technologies, that this is appropriate and will allow for better participation in the process.
Excellent. Would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move we allow for remote meetings to be put on the ballot.
There's a motion by Mike. Is there a second? Second by Jeff. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And unanimous. Moving on to number 3, to review the language for the rainy day fund. So I think we have some discussion on this. I know it's come up a number of times over the years, and we really appreciate, hearing from people who are intimately involved with these issues to kind of give us their expertise. I think the notion, at least from my understanding, when we talked about a cap, was to cap it at 3 million and then keep the original language that made it so if it was below that cap, we would restart the payments. That was my initial thought. I hope that maybe would address some of the concerns. As long as we took money out, the language is still in there that causes us to put money back in. I'm not sure if that's how it was understood, but that's my thought on it.
Mr. Chairman, just point of information, Martin, if we strike this and remove it from the amendment and it stays the way it is now, then we would be just pulling out 1.5 till we get to 3 and then it stops, which is just what he'd said. Do you agree with that?
Right now, what's included in this is what for under item number 3 is exactly what it says in the charter. So
if we propose no amendment for this line item, it stays the way it is now, it would potentially be filled in a couple of budget cycles,
in 2 budget
and
cycles.
we'd be at 3 million.
Yeah, here
And that's where it ends.
Well, it doesn't, though, because it's going to continue as long as the budget increases, the valuation increases, the fund will increase. It has no natural cap right now, Brad, correct?
Yes.
That's
Yes,
correct.
if the valuation doesn't change right now, we're about 2 years away from having it.
Right, but the
Can't
valuation
tell whether
changes.
It does, it's something we would look at every year.
Right.
We do the budget and we need to add more than we would based on valuation.
Right.
So I would argue it needs to be based on valuation, because as the community grows or gets smaller, there's either more or less opportunity for the need of an emergency fund. So if we grow by 100% and there's twice as much stuff here, we need more money to take care of emergencies. There's also more money coming in through the budget to fund it. I think the wisdom of how it's written is very germane, and particularly when you consider we haven't looked at this for 30 years. If we choose a set number, we'll have 10, 20, 30 years of inflation before we look at it again. So I would be in favor of not changing it at all.
Any more comments from the city council? Then I would entertain a motion.
I believe Mike mentioned that, and I'll second that.
Motion by Mike to strike this from the changes, second by Kevin. Any further council discussion? All those in favor of striking this from the charter revision? Opposed? Unanimous. All right. Moving on to number 5, which is change the term chair to mayor.
No, 4.
Yeah, thank you. Change warden and warden clerk to appointed positions. Any council comment on this item?
I would move we make the change to appointed as mentioned and move the respective language for the warden and the ward clerk so that they are appointed as is currently the city attorney.
So we have a motion by Craig,
Second.
second by Jeff. Any further council discussion?
I guess I'm just curious, like, you've been doing it for a while. Is that what your intention was, or was it for our clerk to be the warden?
I see the clerk being appointed, but that's my personal recommendation, but the biggest thing is have it to be an appointed council position.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you. I've got no issues then.
All right. Any further comments? Then all those in favor? And it passes unanimously. Now on to number 5, which is change the term chair to mayor. We'll start with any comments from the city council. I guess I'll start. I know, me personally, I understand the notion to change it. I think it makes sense. At the end of the day, it's really just gonna be a change for basically just the people, at the city or who are very involved in city politics. To your average voter, it probably won't make much of a difference. Then maybe make someone a little more recognizable. And I am in favor of the change. Any other comments, or I would entertain a motion?
I kind of look at the council as 7 equal councilors with one person kind of chairing 7 equals to kind of set policy for the community. I think by changing it to mayor, it becomes more confusing with positions where somebody's paid and kind of a level above those they're sitting next to. So I'm not in favor of it.
Any more comments by the city council?
I understand the reasonings behind it, but there hasn't been any large issue that would prompt an urgency to change this. So I don't see a reason to.
There are no more comments, then
Yeah, I'll comment on it. Kind of the one that's kind of behind this chance after chairing the meetings for a few years, and this is something I mentioned at the last council meeting, that the person that is the city council chairman, that makes a lot of sense when you're in a room with 7 people, but we are frequently asked to speak in front of other gatherings and events, and so when you remove yourself from this setting, you really are acting as more than just the chairman of a meeting, and you're representing the other 6 councilors that are voted on each year. it makes more it resonates more with voters and with people that you are discussing in the room if you are the mayor of the town as opposed to the chairman of a meeting that meets once a month. It doesn't really give any more entitlements. It's just a change of title. Jake and I that have been doing this recently, Mike was chairman before, Emily before that, but frequently and more often we are doing more and more events and meetings and addressing audiences of gatherings of people, I should say, beyond just this room. And that is the reason why I'm proposing this change. I don't think it gives anybody anything any different than what it is now, but I think it resonates with people, particularly at those other events. Beyond this room, makes perfect sense. We're running a meeting, or if you're not here, the deputy is running a meeting, and I view the mayor and the deputy mayor doing the same thing. I'd also remind people that we aren't the only folks that are in this form of government. We 12 miles from here in Caribou, we have a mayor in Caribou, and I haven't seen any real big issues up there in the last 20 plus years that they've had that office. So I think it's just a more of a modernization of bringing the person's responsibilities up to the standard of what people are expecting us to do as the leader of this group. So I think it's an appropriate change.
One thing that was interesting to me, since we've had so many new residents come to the community, the one question that I've had a lot is, who's your mayor? You know, and so I think people from other communities recognize that title, and again, I think it's ceremonial in nature, but I think it is, you know, either way. I'm not strongly, you know, in either way, but I think, you know, it certainly wouldn't hurt. And again, Caribou's done it, and I think in some instances we've been to different meetings, and they said, well, Caribou has a mayor, why don't you? You know, and not that we need to follow Caribou, but just kind of interesting. People have a thought in their head that maybe it's something that they have beyond what Presque has, you know, and so, well, we have a chairman and they have a mayor. They're the exact same position. So I don't know. I you know, is it confusing? Isn't it confusing? Is it better or no, not? I'm indifferent, but
when someone asks who's your mayor, are they curious as to who, like, the city manager is, being the mayor, or the chairman of the council, like Jake?
yeah, and you know, and honestly, I kind of usually answer them with both.
Okay.
You know, kind of say our
Right.
the manager, you know, is this gentleman, and the person that would be mayor is the chairman, and it's this person.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know. I guess because again, across the country, mayor means different things in different places. In some places, the mayor is the manager.
Right.
You know, in our Maine, it's generally not. So anyway, it's just one of those things. I don't know the right answer to this one, but I don't know that it hurts.
Any more comments from the city council? I will just say we are looking for events forever at the forum, and if we don't change this to mayor, we'll never be able to have a city manager mayor boxing match. And I just, you know, at a time where we would love to attract people to the forum, but you know, again, the voters will have an excellent opportunity to decide when they come to the ballot. So,
I
without
didn't see that one coming.
without any further discussion, I would entertain a motion from the city council.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we keep the wording as written.
Motion by Kevin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Craig. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And we have 5-2. Motion passes and will be on the ballot. So that brings us to number 6, which sounds like from the advice the city manager is giving us, it might be the best idea to move this along. I do want to ask council their opinion on this, and ultimately we'll get to vote on whether we want to push this to the ballot. I know from hearing that, I think it'd be wise to heed the advice of our legal counsel and not put the city in any potential issue in the future over maybe a particularly contentious election. But welcome comments from other city councilors as well. If there are no comments, I would entertain a motion to strike number 6 from the list of charter revisions. If not, I'll go ahead and make that motion that we strike number 6, vacancies, forfeiture of office, and tie votes
Second?
from the charter language. Motion by Jake, second by Craig. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And unanimous. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of our public hearing portion of tonight's meeting and the end of our charter amendments. Look for those ballot questions when you go to vote in the polls this year. You'll have a lot of interesting things to discuss. The next section of our meeting tonight is the citizen comment section. This is where you can either write into that email we read off earlier or come to a council meeting in person and discuss anything that's on your mind as a citizen voter of Aroostook County or the city of Presque Isle. With that being said, did we receive any written comments?
No.
Anyone here from the public tonight to address the council? Seeing none, we'll close the citizen comment portion of tonight's meeting and move on to the consent agenda.
What if we have received comments from citizens that wanted us to bring them up?
I think that is incredibly appropriate.
Okay. So I have had a citizen tell me they think we should have a blinky light on the crosswalk of the bike path at Academy Street. I think it's probably one of the highest trafficked places that pedestrians walk, so it made sense to me, and I think that's a challenging intersection. I also see the precedent, if you put one there, where else do you need to put one? And then the other comment that I received was someone that was frustrated that we had just paved Barton Street when we haven't paved the road behind Dunkin' Donuts and Teresa's and that area there, which I understand is not a public roadway, but I don't know how that's been affected with the city's acquisition of that land. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on any of those, Martin, or?
That roadway you're referring to that cuts around, I forget the name of it.
Jordan Street or
Ryan.
Ryan Street.
Yeah.
That's I'll look into that, report back at next council meeting about the status of that road.
Thank you.
In regards to your blinky light, being a business owner for multiple years on that street, I can address the traffic study because they put it right in front of my building on my lawn for a number of years when they were studying traffic. And so I think it would be appropriate to do that, but we could do it and not set precedent by using the traffic counts, because Academy Street, when they did the last traffic count, where my office sits at the beginning of Academy Street, on an average sees over 10,000, just between 10 and 11,000 cars a day. On the corner of Main Street, where Dr. Graves and Academy Street intersects Main Street, it sees about 20,000 cars a day, and those are two of the most busy intersections in the city, and that's going back for the last decade. So I think, if you were to compare that to a State Street intersection or some other of the side streets, I don't think anything comes close to the Academy Street one. Yeah. And you can back it up with DOT traffic count. So
Does it matter that it's state aid road?
well, so is Main Street, and we have one there. So
It is, yeah, the one that we have by Umpy.
It's just something that's funded by the city solely, and you just kind of get their approval, or?
Yes, yeah, and the same process that we used for Umpy and I think Chapman, I can bring that back next council meeting for consideration. Look at what it costs.
And they sign off on it, I think, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know if it would be worth looking at the bottom of state as well, both of those, I think the large issue is that it's at the bottom of a hill, and there's generally a lot more speeding, and, I don't know if you look at incidents through the police, or if that's even really a thing, but
I think you can get the DOT, because they did traffic counts on all those streets, we could see what the numbers are, they could provide those.
right, but not even so much a traffic count. I mean, obviously it's a busy street, but just in its location. You know, I'm sure or I have heard that you can get a more frequent chance of getting a speeding ticket from going down State Street type of thing.
So there's a cost associated with doing these, and there's some files somewhere that gives us an estimate as to what it would cost to do them, and maybe bring those to the September 27th meeting. And I don't mind looking at traffic counts for a minute, and along with the costs, and we can make a more informed decision going forward.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
For the paving part, not of disrespect to anyone that has been involved in that process, but that's not the first road that I've heard complaints about being paved too early, I guess you could say, or not in a what they feel is a priority manner. I don't know if there's a different way to look at that. I know we had got, there was kind of some offline discussion, and I don't know if there's a piece of software or something that was referenced that they use for Traffic Master or something like that, so I don't know if that could be looked at again, of how those are prioritized.
Definitely, I can bring that to the same meeting.
Maybe Dana could
Also,
comment.
while on touching on the topic of pedestrian safety and whatnot, I've noticed up on Edgemont, Central Drive, just coming off of Parsons Street, heading up to the airport, next to where they're building FW Web, no lighting there. It's virtually,
It's black.
it's black.
Dark.
That's black. And I noticed the streets being repaved. There's a new strip of curbing, it looks like it's been put down the past couple days. It is a high traffic area for pedestrians, and it's black up there. So I don't know, a couple.
There's some senior
There's
people
light
here that
poles.
have been around a little longer than me, but we did discuss this a few years back. And the light pole situation up there is dictated by the height of what we can do in the airport runway area. So you can't have something over a certain height.
Something should be done. I mean, early on the morning commute, you've got people coming from the homeless shelter or anywhere else up there. You've got students in the area. You've got a high traffic situation virtually all day long. But morning commute, lunchtime commute, evening commute, and all hours in between. You've got a middle school up there. You've got a college up there. I mean, there's tons of pedestrian activity, but on that strip from Parsons Street to where the armory is, you can't.
It's dark.
It's dark.
Maybe
and,
we
and,
could
and it's
have,
dangerous.
could we have Scott and Dana kind of comment on that?
Like
Maybe Scott and Dana could comment on all those, because Dana knows about the paving, and Scott could give you the airport.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we're gonna group a few of these,
Yeah, they could-
related kind of issues together.
Yeah, maybe they could just address that.
I mean,
Address it all.
I mean, streets up by NM and all that, some of those are lit, right? And those are obviously
Yes.
much higher elevation than,
But they're not on the airport runway right away. That's the kicker. So let's get that back in front of us get that information back, so we're not just
But
doing this out of memory.
Could that lighting be on the north side of that street versus the south side of that street?
Or it could be lower.
Or lower.
Yeah. I think there's a solution there.
I think so.
So I think that kind of raises a couple good points, mainly about citizen comments. Is we are eager to hear from anyone. If you feel brave enough to come to these meetings and speak to us directly, I think that's when we do have people here to talk about it, it's usually the most exciting part of the meeting when we get to hear from constituents, and, you know, it usually riles up the conversation a bit. But also, to Mike's point, you know, you can reach out to any of the individual counselors as well, and, you know, we'll be happy to bring concerns on your behalf. You can email them to us. You can call City Hall and say you want to make a comment. You know, if you'd like to be involved in some way, shape, or form with these meetings, you know, there's an endless number of mediums to do so. So please, if you are a citizen of Presque Isle, Aroostook County, reach out to us, and, you know, we'll try to take your issues at our next City Council meetings. Any more citizen comments? Seeing none, we will close the comment period and move to the consent agenda. We typically take these all as one item unless they need to be broken out. I'll read through them briefly. Number 7, to approve the minutes from August 2nd, 2023. Number 8, to approve 2023 warrants. Number 28, number 29, number 30, number 31, number 32, number 33, and number 34, totaling $4,161,681.87. And number 9, application for utility location permit. Martin, are there any of these that the city would recommend we take individually?
No, council, that could be done, and all 3 items can be done together.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one amendment. On the minutes from the last meeting, it said the next regularly scheduled meeting would be on September 27th, and here we are, September 6th meeting. So that should be corrected, Kim, and that's it. That's all I have.
Excellent.
These are in files forever, so it's a small thing to change.
So I would propose that we,
With that amendment, I'll recommend we take the entire consent agenda 7, 8, and 9 with Kevin's amendment for approval.
a motion by Craig,
Second.
second by Mike. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. That concludes our consent agenda for tonight, and we'll move on to old business. Item number 10, which is the employee handbook. We've had this in front of us a couple times now with some changes, and I've asked the city manager just kind of briefly recap what we're voting on tonight, and then we'll move on to discussion.
So council, I do have, originally when we talked about this, it was back in June. That's the date of my original memo. So it's been a few months. I do recommend waiting until making these changes until the next city manager comes in. They may have some different recommendations than I would. So I'd recommend table until after you have another city manager.
So we have a recommendation from our city manager. Is there a motion, or would council like to discuss?
I don't see any reason why we can't wait until the next one. If anything at all, it just gives another opportunity for somebody to reread 40 pages of stuff and see if these still make sense, which likely they will. So that's fine with me.
Would someone like to propose a motion?
Well, I'll move we table the book until such a time a new manager comments on it.
A motion by Craig. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kevin. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And motion tabled. Moving on to our next item, agenda item 11, which is a City Hall committee update. And we'll go ahead and start with the city manager.
So council, we have multiple members. We have 2 councilors. I believe it's Councilor Green and Councilor Chassie there on the committee. And we have, I think at this point, it's 4 staff members that are also on that committee. They've been meeting throughout the renovation process, and they met last month. And they do have a recommendation. I'll kind of throw it over maybe to the councilors or the staff to talk about what they, unfortunately I was unable to make the meeting, but they do have a discussion about the front of the building, the front entrance of the building that they've identified has had some issues that need to be repaired.
So it will be easier to kind of understand this if you go out and look at it, but visually we have the front entrance, which is not real grand or impressive, and it has concrete steps that are uncovered. The building committee would like to re-engage the engineer that worked on this project to give us, look it over at the building, to give us some engineering on how we could potentially cover those front steps, make a more attractive front entrance that kind of matches everything else that was done to the building. I think the project's come out very well. We've gotten a good bang for our buck. It's beautiful in here now, but I think we need to kind of put that last piece of polish on finalizing the project.
Yeah, and just to echo Councillor Chassie, there's not a do-nothing option exactly with it either, because the other problem with it is the brick has degraded, that's on the two pillars that are closest to the stairs, and because of the rate of decay of the brick, and that's through weather and salt and all of the types of things that happen over 100+ years, they are deteriorating. So covering it with something, is also part of stabilization of that for the future. And we have had people who have slipped and fallen on the steps at different points, which is also an issue. And then the final issue is just simply, we've had the steps rebuilt, I think, during the time that I've been on the council, I think twice, and most recently sealed and repaired, which now if you look at them, there's some cracking starting to come back again, and again, mainly due to weathering and mostly salt. So if they were covered, it would be a safer entrance for people coming into the building. It would extend the life of those things, because I think the last time we fixed the steps, it was something in the order of $13,000, and that was not a major renovation of the steps. And so, what we're proposing is not a huge expense. It's an add-on wood portico, probably of some sort, designed appropriately. So we're not talking about a huge budget for this, but I think if you look at, every 3, 4, 5 years, continually putting money into the steps, along with we're going to have to address all of the brick one way or another, we may as well engage them to give us some options. So that's kind of where we're at.
Is that something that was just like overlooked in the renovations of
No,
the city hall? 'Cause, it's a
yeah.
obviously a good idea.
It wasn't. In fact, Tom is on our committee as well, and he could even speak to it, but it was something that we mentioned in the first part of the project.
Okay.
But what we felt strongly is that all of the interior sections that the public would deal with were important to get done first, to make sure they fit in our budget, which they have.
And really, the spec of the project was to redo the interior for the employees and the public, seal up the windows, but not to do any major changes to the exterior. So I think, as trying to keep the budget for the project down, we didn't want to do anything major to the front, but I think it's become apparent that it's needed. Yep. And we can't do it without some engineering work.
So yeah.
Anything else to add from you guys?
Tom, Lewis.
The street boards are getting the cups, the steps covered.
Okay. Lewis has been one of our stalwart point people on this project. He's kept us
You've mentioned the
informed.
3 points there. It's getting the steps covered. That's going to save a lot of salt, which is what's deteriorating them. Add to the safety, correcting the brick decay that we have, and also the front of it now will have more depth. We can make a nicer looking marquee type of setting on the front step. And adding lights for the flags. That would all be part of that process. So the request is to get the engineering done. We've spoken with Reed, the contractor, and he's all for doing it, but he wants a plan. So that's where we're at there.
And I mean, I might be a little different with Craig. I don't think that this is a place that we should spend too much money, but I don't think we should do it too inexpensively. It's the front door to our city hall, so I think,
Well, I guess I wasn't saying do it in expense, I just saying it's not gonna be as much of a part of the project as what we've already spent.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just,
yeah.
it's gonna be a very minor part
Yeah.
in perspective.
I think one of the avenues that we did look at, was that we have stayed on budget for the complete construction for the couple of years that it's taken, which is pretty amazing. We've probably gotten a bigger bang, as people said, for our buck than we anticipated. The third floor work was added on at a later date and stayed right on budget. So now we've kind of gotten to the point where, that's one of the remaining things that this building would need to extend its life further. All good points about the deterioration of the brick, the covering of the steps. We also have the labor that it takes to keep those steps clear, and everybody knows that salt is a key way to keep you from having a fall or slip on those steps. So if we can minimize the use of it, we'll increase the life of that area. It is an entrance, as Councillor Chassie says, that's the statement you're making. I believe that we could probably do something that would be well within our budget to do and would make a proper statement without going over the top with it. The lawn is coming nicely. There's scheduled to be paving around it. Actually, the exterior appearance of the building should come out quite well by the time this fall is done. And that would be the icing on the cake. Everything could be done fairly economically, and it would be appropriate to do structurally and entrance-wise.
Excellent. Any more comments or updates from the working group?
I've just got a question for the committee. Do you guys feel like you can engage the engineering group before the next the 27th, or is that impossible?
I don't know. I'm working with him on a different project. I know he's quite busy right now, so I think, you know, a
The projects that
discussion.
we have, I do know that they are just really maxed out this late in the season. Everybody wants something done before snow flies, so it does factor in pretty hard. You can ask, but that's about all you can do.
And let's just leave it that, get a proposal back as soon as we can get one, I guess.
So
Excellent.
is it fine if I make a motion that we re-engage AVS Engineering for a proposal to redo the front entrance?
I think so. A motion by Mike. Is there a second?
Second?
A second by Kevin. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And unanimous. Thank you for the updates, and excited to see the plans when we get them. So that concludes our old business for tonight, and we will move on to new business. And starting with number 12, the Echo Lake proposal and excess funding. There has been a slight change to this agenda item, and we're going to hear from, I believe, our economic director. But let's start with our city manager tonight to tell us what's going on.
So council, we do have some information that came through us today. The original resolve was to approve and move forward with awarding the bid to McGillen's. What staff is asking for a motion to table, and I'll have Mr. Weibly explain why we've had a change in position.
All right, good evening, council. Yes, so tonight we were originally going to have you authorize accepting the bid for McGillen for the Echo Lake project. This was well over our initial estimate. Our initial estimate was back in 2022. Inflation happened. So we received this one bid. It's a little bit higher, but it's not too bad compared to our original estimates. But that being said, the U.S. Department of Environmental Protection is the administrator of the $550,000 grant that we received. They have put wonderful strings onto the money that they're going to give us. There were two caveats that were outstanding. One is Build America, Buy America, BABA is called. That provision says that all the material that federal funds are being used for, so for the construction of this site, have to be built in America or bought in America. It was a President Trump policy that is in this rulemaking process. There was a caveat where it gave us a waiver if your design was created before 2022, which we did. EPA, of course, in their bureaucracy has not issued a final ruling to say that we're waived from those requirements. And so at this point, they said you didn't have that BABA provision in your bid packet. And so you either have to go back out to bid with both, one and the other, or they're going to wait until they do a ruling. So we have a 10 o'clock meeting with EPA tomorrow to ask them for clarification on this. So we didn't feel comfortable with moving ahead and awarding this bid and without these outstanding issues taken care of. The other provision was in the bid packet that our consultant handled. There was a missing provision in the bid packet to put a nice construction sign that said that this project was funded by the EPA. So that was not in there, additional cost. So we didn't feel comfortable with moving forward at this time. We do think we'll have the answers for you at your September meeting. The other topic I forgot to mention was we are still waiting for the city attorney also to do the right-of-way easements. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, move to table until the next meeting.
Motion by Craig,
Second.
second by Mike. Any further council discussion? All those in favor to table? And unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 13, which is the 5-year fee schedule. If you look through our packet, included is kind of a breakdown, if you look at the individual departments, of what these fees go to, which I thought was a nice addition. So definitely, if you're wondering why you pay fees for certain things in the city, then you can take a look at our packet, which is on our new website. You'll be able to find that hopefully with ease, and you can kind of get a feel for what these fees are doing and where they're going. And there's also a breakdown of all the fees for different things that all of our various departments have. And we'll let the city manager kind of give us an overview.
So that was an excellent introduction. This is really one of the first steps we take when we start discussing our budget, is to do this in advance of the meeting where we start looking at expenditures. We look at some of the revenues. So what we've done is take a look at the next 5 years, compare them where they are currently, and really this is for when we get into the budget portion. If we want to adjust any of these higher or lower, we have the ability to do that. So putting these together through all different departments of what they charge for fees, it allows you to make a little comparison and see what the departments think where they should be in the next 5 years. The other thing to mention too is in front of you also is the capital improvement plan. We also put that out together. So just to remind everyone at home, the next meeting that we have where we present the budget to council will be the end of September meeting, September 27th. So all these things are lined up to get a budget for you to start considering.
Thank you. That does bring in a good point that, as our city manager just mentioned, we do have our capital improvement program book in front of us to review, and it's definitely worth a read. Martin, can they find this right on the website as well?
Yes, we'll put it on.
Yep, it'll be on as part of the budget process.
Excellent. So if you are scrutinizing the budget of the city, you're going through it, make sure you include the capital improvement program. That's where departments will come to the council for bigger items that their department needs to function efficiently. So this is for discussion only. Do we have any comments from the city council?
Like about
On
something
the fee schedule? Yep.
specifically in there. I had gotten a complaint actually from a citizen about the city hall fax fee. So they were going to register their vehicle, didn't have their insurance card, had Hayden Perry downtown attempt to fax over the insurance card. We charge them $9 to receive that fax, plus an additional $6 if there's more than one page, which seems ridiculous to me. But then even further, as I'm just looking at these 2 pages, at the same time, the library charges $3. So at a minimum, they're not, I don't think that
Consistent.
they're not consistent to begin with, and I don't know if there's another way to, or if there's kind of a caveat for something like an ID card thing, but I'm sure the amount of time that the city clerk spent with having to see this person twice and then the citizens' time and all of that, far outweighed even the $9 that they received.
It is,
So-
it is meant as a deterrent because legally you're supposed to have an insurance card in your vehicle. And so we do see a lot where rather than asking a person to go to their car or just for email, usually what happens is it does create an issue where someone says they don't have the insurance card. Legally, they're supposed to have it in their vehicle. It holds up the line from people who are ready. So we have talked about putting signs out front. If you're registering your vehicle, come with your insurance card or provide it. But this day and age, what we typically see is people electronically have their card and they bring it up on their app with the insurance company. So I don't have a good answer for people that still want to rely on fax. It's pretty old-fashioned.
Yep.
And just have it emailed or do another method. Obviously, there's no fee for emailing. But it does tie up with tying other people in line, so preparing them for when they can register.
I mean, as a citizen being in the town, I would almost rather just get a response that, hey, we can't accept a fax. We don't have a fax machine for that. Rather than, you're gonna charge me $9 for that?
That's a lot of money.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, it's a petty thing, but more an image thing, I think, for what it's worth.
I'll say I'm kind of in agreement if we want to address it directly. I think $9 does seem like a lot, and it's going up to 13 by 2028.
So, at the very least, there should be some level of consistency among departments, and perhaps at the next department head meeting, it could be brought up, and some of this stuff could be massaged a little bit. But I think consistency matters, too. You know, either the library's too cheap or the city hall's too expensive. Just figure out what the difference is.
Well, and you charge 50 cents for a photocopy.
Right.
Kim, how many, is it a lot?
I agree, it's a deterrent. People should have it in their car, and a lot don't, and they expect us to call their vet for their rabies. They expect us to do a lot, so it
Oh, with
deters
stuff
them.
like that, too.
Yeah, like, they forever come in and say, call my vet, I can do the rabies. No, that's something you're supposed to have with the dog. Look,
Yeah.
it is a lot of people, and they expect us to do a lot down there.
Right.
And if you do a lot for this one, you gotta go do it this one, and
It could take you all day
It-
just
it-
on that
I
paperwork.
agree that it's good for a deterrent versus, I don't think the library is just people going in doing a simple insurance, not as many as we have in a day. So I agree with the deterrent,
Right.
but that's.
And most people have a phone now, and you
Yeah.
can have it emailed right to your phone, and
Yeah.
you can show them your phone, so I mean,
Yeah.
it is, yeah,
It's, you know,
yeah, okay.
you get a speeding ticket if you speed, you know, this is just a deterrent, I guess, to me.
All right. Any more discussion on the fee schedule?
I'll just put a plug for it. We have a different rate that we charge for residential construction, building fees versus commercial. It's $5 per thousand with residential, $8 per thousand with commercial. I think we want commercial construction just as much as residential, and they're already paying more due to the nature of the construction, so I think they should just both be the $5, but the city would lose a little bit of money from that.
I think it fits with our theme of making these fees consistent. Any other?
You could probably, let's measure what that potential $3 per square foot might have cost us in 2022 and see what that impacts the revenue side of the game.
I would almost be in favor of doing the opposite, bringing residential up to 8. I mean, if someone's gonna build something, $3 per thousand is not gonna deter that.
Well, I think the idea always was that the inspections and the time involved with our code enforcement guy,
Right.
it takes a little bit more time to, monitor and keep track of a commercial construction project. But I think they're generally so much higher dollar value that's gonna kind of get the city the extra money anyways.
Yeah, we're definitely will, when we look at that, it's in the planning department that, where those revenues come in, so we can easily take a look at those two items and discuss some scenarios for those fees.
But you look at somebody doing $1 million project, so they're investing $1 million in the community to bring jobs, and then the city's asking for $8,000 for a building permit fee. I think it seems like a lot.
All right. Any more discussion on the fee schedule? With that, then I think we're all set to move on and end the discussion. And we will move on to agenda item number 14, which is the downtown redesign public meeting. And we'll go ahead and start with the city manager.
Council, you've probably seen it around town. They've been trying to get notification out. The next meeting where we'll talk with the representatives from T.Y. Lin. They're the engineering that's doing the downtown redesign. The next meeting is October 11th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the multi-purpose room at the campus center at University of Maine at Presque, and we hopefully will have some concepts for downtown. So I know we've been approaching downtown vendors and residents alike that they should come out. I was happy with the turnout last time, but I'd love to see more people to come issue some comments and see the designs.
Thank you. I'll reiterate that. That's October 11th from 6 to 8. That's in the multi-purpose room, the campus center, the University of Maine at Presque, located at 181 Main Street. This is, as our city manager just mentioned, your opportunity to really get involved in one of the largest projects the city of Presque Isle is going to have for the foreseeable future. So when you start seeing that construction, however many years down the road it is now, just know that this is the meeting you need to come to put your input into the redesign of the downtown of the city of Presque Isle. So if you're interested in that, this is a great meeting, and even if you're not interested in giving your input, definitely come see the concepts, listen to what we have to say. I'm sure they'll address what we're doing and why we're doing it, and it's a great way to get involved. And if you don't want to come to the actual meeting, it's also going to be streamed online. If you, once again, go to our website, get this packet, there's a link right in there to YouTube where you'll be able to view the meeting live. And if for whatever reason you don't want to go and you don't want to watch it, our economic director's email and phone number is here as well, and you can email him with questions about what the redesign is and what the impact will be on the city, and I'm sure he'll be happy to help you out. Any council comments on agenda item 14? All right, moving forward, that brings us to number 15, which is the Northern Border Regional Commission Award, and we will go back to our city manager.
Council, I do want to ask Kim Smith, she's the grant writer and public information officer for the city, to tell you about this wonderful award we recently received.
Good evening, Council. So I don't know how much you know about Northern Borders Regional Commission. The grant is a federal offering, and it serves the states of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and the northern part of the state of New York. For 2023, there was $43.6 million available for all 4 of those states. In the state of Maine alone, there were 63 applications totaling $60 million. So obviously this was a very competitive award. Of those 63 applications, 15 of those were successful, resulting in $11 million for the state of Maine. And the city of Presque Isle applied for $1 million towards our new airport terminal. In order to be successful, our application needed to meet as many of the grant criteria as we possibly could. NBRC had certain priorities. For instance, transportation infrastructure, workforce development, and climate resiliency. Obviously, being that this was for the new airport terminal, that covered infrastructure for transportation. The new terminal is going to be 25,000 square feet as opposed to our current terminal of 10,000 square feet. So that obviously, with the increased size, gives us some opportunity for increasing job opportunities. And it's estimated that this will produce 100 to 200 direct and indirect new jobs. So it does touch on workforce development. When you add in that by having an efficient airport, we are helping large employers in the area by giving them an opportunity to fly people in and out, that helps in that aspect as well. As for climate resiliency, the airport carrier is thinking of moving to biomass fuel. We are going to be adding EV charging stations, and with the repositioning of the terminal, we'll take better advantage of solar efficiency for the apron at the airport. In addition to the NBRC criteria, we also needed to meet the criteria of the Aroostook, Washington Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. And they were the exact same criteria: workforce development, infrastructure, and environment. And lastly, we needed to comply with the state of Maine's economic strategy. Our application did so by providing what they call a supporting infrastructure, and it also addresses hubs of excellence. In order to be an economically competitive hub of excellence, you must provide frequent air service. So as you can see, this was a pretty good fit for the criteria. And as a result, we were awarded the full amount of our request of $1 million. And Scott Wardwell and I traveled to Orono a week ago, and we met with Senator Collins and Governor Mills, where we received the award. And I would like to now present you with our official certificate for being an inaugural Catalyst Program Award. So I will present that to Jake as our council chair.
Thank you.
And then I would ask if anyone had any questions.
You have a copy of the check?
When we get the check? Yeah, I don't know about that one. I don't know on that. That would be a Scott question, I think.
Thank you very much, Kim. That is,
Thank you very much.
Charlie, we live by 3 fast rules: get the money, get the money, get the money.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah,
Made
that
like
is
a big cardboard check too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they didn't do that. They, in fact, at the press release that we went to, the press conference, they didn't even list the award winners.
Oh,
They invited us all, but they didn't list them.
interesting.
Yeah, and then at the end of the presentation, they said, okay, those of you who aren't getting an award, you can leave. And then they called us up, the ones that were left called us up one-on-one to do the photos. So
Wow.
it was kind of interesting.
I think the answer to your question though, Gary, is they don't give money until there's the notice to proceed. So it means the project has to be happening before we get the funding.
Yeah, we got a little bit more funding to raise yet. We're close.
So there are 11 communities in Maine. I think there were a few in Aroostook County besides
Several
us.
in Aroostook County, actually. We were very fortunate. I got it right here.
Was one,
Yes. Hold on. I got the list right here.
480,000.
Let's see. Presque, $1 million. Shiretown Development Corporation got 500,000. Caribou got 472,550. Town of Eagle Lake got 250,000.
Yep, great.
So
Wow.
we were
Counties-
well represented.
The county's doing well. Thank
Yes.
you, Kim, that's a big project. I know you've got a lot of hours invested in that and job well done. Thank you
Thank you.
very much. You and Scott.
Thank you.
A lot of work left to go, so keep your pencil sharp. Good stuff.
Thank you very much for that. That's obviously exciting for the city and Aroostook County at large, it sounds. Any more comments from the city council? All right, then we'll move on to our last agenda item tonight, which is agenda item 16 and the budget calendar. And we'll go ahead and start with the city manager.
Council, I'll start the discussion and leave it to council decide how they want to do this budget process in terms of meeting dates. In last year, after after we wrapped up with the budget cycle, we had a frank discussion amongst council, and I had it with staff, and we agreed that the format really wasn't as effective as we all wanted it to be. We had a lot of meetings in October that were back-to-back prior to getting actual numbers in the budget. Typically, it's towards the tail end of November when we get actual figures, and really start making decisions as the council when they finally get the final budget numbers. Those first few meetings in December that we have. So one of the thought is to move all the meetings that were back to back in the beginning of October and really look towards move those back to November. But we did typically we had 3 nights that were back to back that were difficulties. So I did include what we have done in the past as part of your packet, so you could see what we did last year for the meeting style, and had some thoughts for when we can hold those meetings. I want to thank Councillor Freeman for saying that the October 11th meeting, when I originally proposed, is when we have T.Y. Lynn that's coming. So we should not have that
Well,
meeting.
no, that's October. This one's September.
No, he's
Is
got
it?
it scheduled for Wednesday, the 11th of October. We
Yeah, next page, right here.
should have the opportunity to be up at the T.Y. Lynn thing if we want to attend that. So.
Oh, I thought that was September 11th. No?
Could move that date ahead one night if we want to choose that format. Run October 10th as a
Oh, it is October. Okay.
presentation if you guys want to adopt that. I'm either way.
So I think, at least when I came into it and gave my opinion when we talked about the budget, one point of contention was the presentations from the staff. And I know we had talked about if we want to continue hearing those and then waiting, and I had suggested, and I think others had spoken up as well about how I think it'd just be easier for council to meet and review the budget, so that way we have a chance to talk about some of the changes that the council would like to see before we hear the or not before we hear the presentations, but in lieu of the presentations. So council will hopefully continue to have these mid-October meetings. They will be in a public session, and department heads and citizens at large are encouraged to come hear what the council is discussing. But this will give the council an opportunity to have discussions in kind of a less formal setting that allow everyone to get their thoughts out. And I know that seemed like a good idea to me, because in the past, what happened was we'd hear presentations from staff, and then council would go and make changes, and then there was sometimes miscommunication. There was a lack of time where we can only meet so many nights, that we'd hear the presentations and maybe staff would walk away thinking they're done, and then they come back and they hear from the council about changes where we weren't really able to digest all of the information right there and then give it directly back to the department head. So I think hopefully with this format, we'll give it a try this year. If we can't meet the 11th, I think that might be fine to even.
Can we do the 10th or not?
I'm thinking we might not need the
Don't
3
need it?
meetings, just for where the council is going to be discussing.
Start on the 18th?
The 12th, I was thinking, on the. So we have our October 12th and October 13th meeting from last year.
Well, yeah, but on your new one. Okay, I get you.
Yeah, get on that page over there.
Okay.
That was my thought. Obviously, we're here to discuss how we want to go about doing this budget calendar. But I think this will give, if we go with last year's schedule and keep the meetings, so we'll meet as a council on October 12th to have general discussions about the budget. We'll meet again on the 13th if we need it to wrap up those discussions. And then that way, as department heads go in and finalize their budget, they'll already have the input of the council, so those things can be added to the budget before they finalize it. And then it will give us all these meetings the following months to address any concerns and kind of work with our team members of the city to get the budget where we want it to be. Obviously, I'm just one counselor, so if you guys have other.
I think just to be clear, that what we're looking at right there attaches the calendar used in 2022. So those dates are actually 23 dates based on what we did in 22. Okay. So if you want to, you're starting on the 27th at the next council meeting to have a public hearing about the budget presentation. That much is clear. We're going to do that. And then whether you want to have workshops or not is what you're debating on, or when you want to hold those workshops.
Yeah, correct. I think we should keep the workshop so that way council has the opportunity to discuss amongst ourselves what we'd like to see in the budget. I know, at least for me, sitting in the past, we go to these meetings, we hear from the department heads, and then, you know, we don't really have time to take the feedback and respond right there. And then, you know, so I think it'll give us a chance as a council to review the budget. Internally, it'll be in public session, but, and then we can, you know, department heads, as they go into this kind of modified schedule, give them an opportunity to include our feedback before they make their budget. And then everyone's gonna be on the same page when it comes time to approve this.
What's your feedback on that, Martin?
I do think that those, frankly, that the feedback I got, and to be brutally honest, is that when we review these budgets and do those workshops with all the departments having 15 to 20 minutes, we do that in October. We don't have full budget. Like what was being said, they think that they're done presenting. The council doesn't act on the budget till the beginning of December. And the information that they present in October is not the same as what's presented in December. So I don't think you should have those meetings in the beginning. You should move those towards really November, December, when we have accurate figures. And that's the problem. But I do like the idea of meeting and giving the chance for the council to review the budget after we hand it out on the 28th, and then meeting sometime to get clarification. I like the idea of that question and answer. Hey, I have questions about this in the budget. Explain that to me. But those presentations where department heads go, having that in October is just it's not valuable, because it doesn't give you a full picture of what's actually the bottom line's going to be.
So would you recommend the 11th and the 18th of October just be moved up to the 1st and 15th of November?
I think yes.
Does that sound like a compromise?
Sure.
Keeps the budget process intact, but just moves it 30 days back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we're getting rid of October 11th, no October 18th.
And I guess I just would counter, I think the department head presentations are helpful for me, and generally before I want to sit down and review the budget, I like to hear from everyone so that I understand the full picture of the organization before I start formulating kind of my priorities. So I mean, maybe that's different than how some people feel, but I think it's helpful for me to not just hear from one or two, and that's why I generally don't even review the budget until I've heard from everyone, because how can I prioritize stuff until I know the big picture? So, I mean, that's just how it works for me. I think it's helpful to hear from everyone. Right at the beginning, I mean, if 10, 11 is too early for that, then we do it later, but I also agree the budget process last year was very painful, and I think it didn't help relations between any of us. So, I mean, we need to do better, for sure.
So I think we need to make a decision. Are we gonna move forward with the presentations? You know, I think that's the question on the table.
So there's no problem with it presenting on the 27th, right?
Not at all.
No. And then just run the first workshop on November 1.
Mm-hmm. And we can certainly add extra dates in that time frame in November. By then, we should really have some good factual numbers, so when they do present, if that's what council decide, we know the numbers are a lot better. Part of the things we're running into this year is, you know, the creating the facilities department, where we know what we want to do, but getting the actual numbers, so there's no surprise. I think that's a good one. And I always union negotiations this year. And so until we get some of those numbers figured out, that can fluctuate. And so I think with years that you're doing union negotiations, modifying it is going to be helpful for everyone to get actual numbers.
I just wanted to clarify for, it seems like in the past, some department heads feel that, or at least that's what I think they're thinking, is they present it, and if no one is questioning specifically certain things, or, you know, grilling them about something, that they're just kind of unofficially saying, okay, we're getting all that type of stuff. And I guess that's one thing that I just kind of want to caution all the department heads, that, you know, just because we're not questioning it when it gets presented doesn't mean it's in the final budget by any means. And I think there might have been a few questions about that in the past, or wrongful assumptions. Maybe I'm wrong with that, but
I think
Doesn't hurt to put that out there, it's fine.
so. I think for a point of clarification, at least to me, it sounds like we need to decide if we're going to hear presentations from individual department heads
In September,
in general.
in general?
oh, I think we need it in general.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I definitely
Because-
walked away
but-
last year with the impression that we wanted to do away with those.
We don't necessarily understand all the, you know, how, we might all feel that one line is not important at all, and then, you know, fire chief. I say fire chief because he always asks for
I think it's more
100
helpful
things, but.
that we hear about, you know, not necessarily the things that are the same, but what they highlight with us that is the difference.
Mhm.
You know, because I mean, we know that they're going to have copy paper. We know they're going to have, you know, gas. We know they're going to have all those things, and there's not a lot we're going to do about that. But you know, but maybe highlight the things that are different. You know, things that are you know, we think this streamlines our department. We think this change is necessary because it was inadequate before, or this is no longer necessary. I think those are the things that they tell us about their day-to-day operations that we wouldn't know.
Mhm. And
You
they,
know.
I think they did say they were going to include a narrative.
Yeah.
I think the idea was.
I think that's the
Yeah.
important part
But
for us.
was the narrative, when you put this together and spoke with the department heads, was the idea to do the narrative in lieu of their individual presentation?
Yes, and do more of, supply the narrative, give the council an opportunity to read that, and then really do the question and answer. I still think that you obviously need to hear
Oh,
from
yeah.
department heads,
Yeah.
but have it more of, you know, conversation that this is, rather than going line by item,
Yeah.
have the department heads, when you see the budget and there's a major change, I want them to explain that to you in a narrative so you can kind of see it, and still follow up with questions, why are you doing it? But I know when you're looking through a budget that's, you know, almost 200 pages long, and just seeing major fluctuations, it's not helpful. Having that narrative should help explain that so you have a better idea. And
That's great, as long as we all read it and read it ahead of time.
that's a good
And
point.
that's what is forced when we have presentations from department heads. We're all sitting here and we're getting told the narrative. So I will say that there have been times when I've been really great and done all my work ahead of time, and there's been times when life's gotten busy, and it's been helpful to be forced that narrative. So I think that's the most important thing. If we're gonna do it that way, we need to all read the damn thing ahead of time.
Well, and that's why I propose those extra meetings with just the council, so that way, you know, as a group, we can read through the narratives, we can read through the changes, and, you know, if there's a narrative that there's a big change to a budget, we can go as a council if we feel we need to, line by line, and look through all these changes. But that was the purpose of those meetings. But if we're gonna hear the presentations, then we're gonna have to decide if this schedule is gonna work, I think.
And also, originally I didn't want to have this discussion about budget dates until you actually got the budget next month, so you can kind of take a look at it and review it. So originally I wanted to put this in the December 27th, so after you see the budget and see the format, see if you wanted to make the change. So that's another option too, is you don't have to decide tonight, maybe after you see the budget, see what it looks like. At that point, we can decide what to do for dates. I think what the most important thing is making sure those counts, whatever I propose is fine, but it's if you can actually make those meetings. You're the decision makers. I want to make sure that you're all available for those meeting dates, whatever's picked.
Okay. So I think we're set on our dates.
Yeah.
Are you all set with a way forward, Martin? Okay. Any other comments on the budget? Do you need a vote on those dates, Martin, or are we all set with just discussing?
I think discussing right now, what I'd like to do is, you know, give councilors an opportunity to take a look at these dates, make sure that they're available. So maybe between now and when you meet in what, 2 weeks, that we make sure those dates will work.
Okay. Excellent. Well, if there's no other comments, we'll close that discussion and we will move right along to the manager's report.
So council, one more notice of, from MDOT, that they are doing an on-demand public meeting, and they have put this out on social media. It's on Facebook, that it pops up if you're a resident, that you'll see that they want to get your input on the phase 2 of the bypass. So the public comment period is open right now. You can easily watch the video at your own leisure, watch it, make a comment. So I just wanted to make people aware that that's up and running, and we also have it on our website. So if you want to look it up, but you can easily find it also on maine.gov and see that they're looking for comments for the phase 2 of the bypass.
Yeah, and Martin, we posted it on the Positively Presque Facebook
Super.
page. So if you're on Positively Presque Facebook page, it's there, and it's on the city site, and it's on Maine DOT. So if you can't find it on one of those, then
That's a good date. Okay, that works. Thank you. Okay, anything else, Martin?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So we'll do our announcements for tonight. We've got a pretty long list here, so bear with me. The Maine State Firefighters Annual Convention is September 8th, 9th, and 10th. There will be festivities going on all around town, so look out for that. I'm sure you can check that out. Is that available on our website as well? Do we have information there?
That is. Yep, we have it on our community calendar.
All right, so head over to the community calendar on our website to check out what's going on with the Firefighters Convention. A walk for hospice will be held at the Nordic Heritage Outdoor Center on September 9th at 9 a.m. The Central Aroostook Chamber of Commerce will hold an apple crisp sale at North Street on September 21st. Acoustic afternoons in the garden at the Vera Esti House Museum on September 23rd from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. Nomination papers for 2 council seats and 2 MS81 school board members are available from the city clerk for the November 7th, 2023 municipal election. Deadline to submit nomination papers is September 8th, 2023 at 5 p.m. The city has the following employment vacancies: firefighter and paramedic, public works truck driver, facility director, and public works director. We have the following vacancies for boards and committees. Assessment review, we have 2 one-year alternates. Audit committee, we have 1 4-year member. Zoning board, 1 3-year member and 1 1-year alternate. Planning board, we have 1 1-year alternate. Rec and parks, we have 2 1-year alternates. Downtown revitalization, we have 1 4-year member. And please see the city clerk for an application, or you can apply right online. And lastly, the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Presque Isle City Council will be on Wednesday, September 27th, 2023 at 6 p.m. And we start our executive session at 5 p.m. in the council chambers at City Hall. Thank you very much for everyone attending tonight, and I would entertain a motion to move into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 405 6A to discuss personnel matters.
So moved.
Moved by Kevin, second by Jeff. All those in favor? And we are adjourned. Thank you everyone for coming tonight and watching online.
I don't think